that?
That's Scott.
Different Scott. Let's use initials.
It is 7 o'clock, so I'm going to go ahead and open up the work session. I think first we'll start with the strategic plan, and then as soon as Lynn can get that pulled up on the
We just want to
big screens.
Yeah, we'll just kind of walk through it and
see if there's any changes or anything anybody jumps out at, and we'll move on to the solar.
Okay.
Well, while Lynn's working on that, is everybody able to pull up on their tablets the strategic plan? Get started.
Where's the since we refreshed it, I can't find it. Where's the best place? I was just kind of looking for it on the website.
Where's it at on the website?
Okay. Yep. Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, go to government, then city council, and then. This one?
Yeah. There you go. Okay, looks like Lynn's has it up too now.
Yep. We tied. All right, we'll just kind of walk down through this, open up for discussion, questions, suggested changes, but see the vision there at the top. Safe, affordable, connected hometown for all. And then we have the three primary focus areas: municipal services, economic development, quality of life. And then those are broken down into that's her. Yeah. Those are broken down into individual quantitative areas. You can see in municipal services, provide affordable, reliable, and sustainable services. You can kind of read the rest. In the goal here, so I guess the first thing is read through those bullets as everybody has them up or can look at those. Are we still good with those under municipal services? First of all, we good with municipal service being a focus area, and those being the four areas that under that we're going to focus on. Right. So ideally, we have on all of these, what we're trying to get to, and it's going to take some time though, is to be able to have some way to measure, progress on these focus areas, and really the first one that we've got some really good quantitative information is on the affordable, reliable, or at least the reliable and affordable is in a different spot. But for the reliability piece, we've got data from Jeff and his team around really how much uptime we had in this is 2023, I believe, and with specific outages. So it's very good information about how often we were up and how rarely we were down, and when we did have an outage, causes, so we have an ability to go back in and try to figure out ways to address those. And that's where, as we get to the strategic planning piece, that's where we have our budget conversations. If there's areas that we as a council think we need to focus on in 2026, that's where we had that discussion in the budget conversation to direct funds to try to go do that. Obviously, with input from the department heads about what they need. If we say, okay, reliability needs to get better, what do you need to do that? They would come forward with some suggestions, and we say, well, can we afford to do that? It's going to be always come down to chasing that last little bit to perfection is very expensive, right? So it's a matter of how are we doing. It's good to compare yourselves to other communities this side from both reliability and affordability. So this one, I think we're fairly good. We'll probably take another refresh this probably in 25. So I have 2 years worth of data and refresh this to see how we're doing. On the other ones, we don't have anything concrete yet to place in here. A lot of these are going to be qualitative, where there really isn't, when you talk about increased transparency and community feedback, there's some metrics you can throw at that and say, yeah, there's some things we've done, but a lot of it's going to be, if the community doesn't see it, did it really happen? So a lot of it's going to come through the survey, and we got a lot of great information from the community survey about all of this stuff. And what we need to do, and I keep pushing, we're going to have to keep pushing on, is take that survey, add, I don't know how many questions, 50 questions, but each one of those questions is going to be related somehow to one of these areas, one of our focus areas. And so what we can do is see what the scores were, at least what the public thinks about how we did in 2023 relative to attract, develop, and retain quality staff, or you pick one, And so we'll have that next survey when we decide to do that 1 or 2 years from now, go back and compare that to what we had, and again, back to our focus areas. So we'll have an ability to look at least what people think, how people think we're doing, which I think will be important. So everybody go with municipal services, economic development, performance areas. Thanks, Lynn. Attract and retain businesses and residents. That's data we need to just pull together and get out on the website. That's obviously going to be quantitative. We'll know that from our records. We just need to get that on the website. Increased tourism exposure. Again, that's something that you can measure by, how people think you're doing, and are you spending money on it out of the budget? So we can kind of measure our expenditures in that area. And then revenue growth is real easy. We need to get that out there on this as a, so the way I see this eventually working is revenue growth. There'll be either right underneath it, there'll be something you can link to and go see it, or it'll just tell you what it is.
Really, all we need to do on that is, when you're talking economic development, we just need to pull together the last 5 years of sales tax data and put it out there to show what our sales tax collections have. That's
right.
That's the revenue that you can measure economic success on.
Yeah, it's things like that we just need to get out there, and at least establish that baseline, and then you can measure which way you're going. Until then, it's kind of everybody's gut feel on how we doing. It's nice to have something concrete, or at least a little concrete to compare it to. So any issues with that performance area or those focus areas? And then quality of life. This one's really going to be more of the survey driven, subjective, qualitative, foster a family-oriented experience, and that's going to vary between everybody in the city. They're going to have a different view of what family-oriented experience, but that will come out in surveying. You'll find out what that means to them or what we're missing in that regard. Support residents' physical, mental, financial, and social quality of life. Again, there's those questions we ask will determine, how the residents think we're doing in this area. And the connected city is really pretty broad. It's both, connected as citizens, those things that we do to foster that. And then how are we connected through infrastructure, sidewalks, those types of things that allow people to actually get around the city. And those things that we have that we don't have, we might want to get. So that was fairly straightforward as well. And then the survey results are further down below that, so everyone can go see what those are. And I think part of what the strategic planning committee is going to try to do is work with our consultant and get that survey carved up, questions and answers carved up into these other focus areas and kind of place them there as a baseline. So what do you think? Changes? Everybody good?
I think I'm good with it. Anybody else? All right. Okay. Good there.
Good.
All right. Glenn, we'll move on to solar. You invited a couple guests to speak.
You do. They both have logged in there. If get back up there on the screen, I guess. We're gonna do. Yeah.
Let's hear from our first one then, and we'll.
Can you hear me? Good night, good afternoon, good evening.
Hello, can you hear us?
Hi. Yeah, I can hear you. I don't see, is Rick on?
I don't believe he is.
No? Okay. I know that he was running a little late, and so that's why I was curious. I don't see anybody else, just myself.
He might try and call back in. He was on earlier.
Okay. Let me see where he's.
Yeah, maybe send him a message.
He was on earlier. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, let me get started. I'm pretty sure Rick will be. He was heading home, so I don't know what the status was, if he was where we are, and if you let me know when he pops up, if you don't mind, I guess.
Okay.
Well, I'm Scott Shreve. I'm with Priority Power. We work with a lot of municipalities in Kansas, Missouri, a lot of municipalities around the country. Priority Power is their main headquarters is in Arlington, Texas. And I used to work for Evergy, probably 17, 18 years, and had municipal work, called on the municipalities, called on a lot of rate structure, big special contracts with the big industrial customers of Evergy. I started my own business in 2002, EMG, and basically came to the other side of the table and started negotiating power supply and contracts. Oh, there's Rick. Sorry, just a minute. Rick? Sorry about that. He is 3 minutes from home, so I apologize. But you know, we help municipalities in a lot of different ways, and we've put in several solar projects in Kansas, Beloit, and for Fredonia, 2.5 megawatt installation. And we again would try just kind of give you an update and some technical advice information. Rick is the one who's the technical guy, and so I've got a PowerPoint that we'll walk through and kind of give you some details of how we do it. We're transparent. We show all the numbers and let you guys make decisions all the way through it. I think Glenn, the LMI application, the resolution, that's for another 20%, and we'll get into all that information. But I think that's the information that you passed that resolution the first part of February.
Yeah, and just to clarify, you're not going to show any numbers or anything, just for bid purposes and stuff, correct?
We were just going to give some general. No, well, I guess we can certainly.
I just want to make sure that if we go
numbers,
out for bid for a project, we got caught in a situation before where we went out for bid after somebody showed numbers and they got upset with us. So we want to give everybody a fair shot.
Nope, I appreciate that. I will. Let's see. We'll plan accordingly, I guess. Talk in general terms, and our PowerPoint had some general numbers. It's really kind of that. You get 30% ITCs for renewable. You get 10% for domestic content, and so we've tried to show you just some general idea of what the kind of the ballpark project would cost. Assuming we get we would get 40% on the ITCs. And then the other 20% would be this LMI that you applied for before February 15th. And we should know probably first part of the summer. And I'm looking through the PowerPoint.
I mean, as long as they wouldn't be your bid numbers. I just don't want you, if we go out to bid, you guys getting upset with us because your numbers were part of public, a public meeting.
Sure, absolutely. No, I understand that. I appreciate it. Okay, well, we can kind of adjust here on the fly. I'm looking through the PowerPoint. Apologize. All right. Still no Rick, I guess. Sorry.
Not yet.
Okay. I do commend you of the information I've received. Is that you're looking at all sorts of aspects. You looked at the GRDA and looked at that contract. You're looking at adding additional generation, which I think makes sense behind the meter. Maybe some more diesel generators, and certainly I know your 1 megawatt of solar that you have today, and just looking at the diversity and the plan that you have going forward. So. Really admire you guys kind of going really digging deep and going through all the information and the data there. So, all right, Rick is joining.
I'm still not seeing him.
Maybe we have Jeff talk about the pushback issue or the 2 meg limit.
Yeah.
We're waiting.
Yeah. We'll let our staff start while you guys are waiting.
Okay.
So Jeff, I think I had a question. Anyways, you sent out an email referencing a 2 megawatt limit. Can you kind of go through that a little bit?
Yeah, so back 2021 or whenever it was, we were talking about possibly putting some more additional on the school site. We actually had a contractor.
Turn the mic on.
Sorry,
Can you turn that mic
you hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
I could hear you before too.
So we started with a company that was supposed to do a power quality study were we to add more additional behind the meter solar. One of the problems with inverter based generation, which would be solar and or wind, is they're inverter based. They convert a DC power to an AC power. During that conversion, there's what's called reactive power. And reactive power is a different kind of power. We can get right in the weeds on this, but too much reactive power can cause power quality issues within your system. So if we were to have more than our load of generation through a inverter based generation, then it can give us problems. And there's some things you can do to combat it. You can add capacity banks and such, but all that is an additional charge too. So back when we were talking about the school property, we wanted to know what that meant for additions for our system. So we're still in the same boat. Our minimum load has not increased a whole lot in those years. So there's times that our minimum load is under 3 megawatts during a high solar time, like the middle of the day. 12, 1 o'clock is your high points for your solar production. So there are times right now, if we put an additional 2 megawatts on, we could be above what our load is. Again, we would probably have to have an engineer do a power quality study to determine if that 2 would even fit into the system. But I have concerns about talking about 3 because that puts us over a megawatt more than what our load is. So I don't know if I helped you guys on that.
Is that related to the pushback issue or the lack thereof?
Well, it is a point of it because we'd be pushing back a megawatt or more at certain times. And one of the conditions of our interconnect with Evergy is that our power factor remain at 95 and above. Well, when you have a lot of reactive power, that drops power factor. So that could actually affect what they're seeing as our power quality, our power factor, and that could get us out of contractual terms with them even. So
Is it possible? Is it possible to have an engineer design a way to, when you're at your peak, to interrupt the inversion process, leave it DC, and then push the DC onto the grid?
no, your grid is AC. It has to be converted.
Okay.
Wouldn't we, I guess, while we were doing solar, wouldn't we design those features? Because I think that those features could be designed into the system and fix all that problem.
So maybe the guys online could tell us more about their inverter, what they can do. But inverter settings can be changed to change your reactive power that it's putting out there. Some of the disadvantage of that is you lose some production when you start trying to mess with power quality. So your production could actually be pulled back a little bit when you're talking about trying to improve your power quality within the system. And I'm assuming newer technology inverters might have a better job of facing this, but that might be a question for Rick and Scott. And I know one of their items on their sheet was a power quality study, so I don't know at what point that would pull in under their time frame. But
Any more questions for Jeff right now? Oh, all right, we'll bring back our speakers then. Looks like they're both on with us now.
Perfect. Let me share my screen. And Rick, I don't know. Rick, can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay. Okay. We're not gonna. We'll share the PowerPoint. We're just not gonna share any pricing or numbers that we have. There's a few that are code okay to show, but some of the numbers that I'll carve that out as we go. So I will share my screen here. Hopefully. No. Well, Rick, not having a good day here. Let's see. Oh, here we go. Okay. Can you see my screen?
No.
Yeah, we've got it. Hang on. That's weird. There you go.
Go.
Just lost him.
All right. Are you there, Scott? You seem to be muted, maybe. Well, you're back.
Can
Where's
you
your
hear me?
screen?
Yeah, we can hear you. We can't see your screen anymore.
When your screen was up, we couldn't hear you.
Okay. Rick, I'm going to put. Oh, shoot. Sorry, guys. Okay. I'm going to share my screen again. And Rick, you'll take it from there. You can see it.
I don't see it yet.
There you go.
Yeah, we see it, and we see both your faces now.
Yeah, I think we got everybody.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Great. Easy enough. Rick?
Yes, if you could just tell me what slide we're on. I don't see your
Okay.
screen.
Yep, the second slide.
Okay, and I'm going from memory. Is this the you're gonna have to describe
The
that?
Are you
My
not, are you
computer
not
just
able to
double wide.
see?
I'm not able to see them, ma'am.
Okay, I'm going to drop the YouTube channel into your chat feed, and you should be able to follow along. There's a very slight lag. Just for the record, we have never tried to have virtual guests before, so this is very much all new.
Yeah, I think that should work. If he can just follow along through the YouTube feed, even though it'll be delayed just a little bit, he can kind of see where we're at.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I don't see the YouTube feed, but I was able to open up the slides on my phone separately. So if we're on slide 2, this
Okay.
is the Spring
Yeah.
Creek 3 megawatt solar tracker.
Correct. Correct.
Okay. So what we laid out here was on the Spring Creek Park property. This is a 3 megawatt AC solar facility. It's a single axis tracker. So your current solar facility is called a fixed tilt. It's tilted to the south at a fixed angle. So the energy profile is shaped like a parabola in that in the morning it ramps up, in noon it's at your maximum output, in the afternoon it ramps down. These trackers, the rows are on a north to south axis, and the trackers move the panels from east to west through the course of the day. So in the morning, the panels are tilted 60 degrees to the east, and they capture more sunshine that way. At noon, they're flat, and in the afternoon and the evening, they're 60 degrees pointing to the west. By tracking the sun, you get more energy in the morning and the afternoon, and the afternoon energy especially is where it's valuable because that's where the air conditioner loads hit in the summer. The AC capacity, so what you get on your grid is 3 megawatts, but solar panels produce direct current or DC, just like your phone battery, car battery. And we overbuild the DC side. So it's 3.9 megawatts DC, 3 megawatts AC. We overbuild by 30% so that you get more energy in the morning and afternoon and also more in the winter. In the summer, you'll hit that full 3 megawatts, but in the winter, with the sun lower in the sky, you'll be maxing out at about 1.5 to 2 megawatts. The rows from center to center are 21 feet. That's a pretty wide row spacing. Using that row spacing, we're using 15 acres total of this site. If any of you have been to Beloit or Fredonia and seen those facilities, they use a 17-foot row spacing. And so that would knock off about 2 acres, but 15 acres fit 3 megawatts very nicely. We take this design and we run it through a statistical model that looks at the historical weather patterns for this specific area of Kansas. And it estimates how much electricity you're going to generate every hour of the year. You generate nothing at night and more in the summer than the winter. And on a on what's called a 50th percentile probability, because solar is a variable resource, so you never know exactly how much the sun's going to shine on a given day, but over the course of the year, it's pretty predictable. This layout would generate 6,800 megawatt hours in a year. On the sunniest year in a century, it could be as high as 10% more than that. On the least sunniest year, it could be 10 to 15% lower than that. But that's what you would expect over the course of annual average over the course of 10 years for the output. The system has a warranted life. The modules are warranted for 30 years. Properly maintained, they should last for 35 or 40 years. So this is an upfront investment that then results in very low cost electricity and runs for decades to come there. So this was the design that we submitted with the low to moderate income tax credit bonus, that 20% bonus. This was the 3 megawatt size project. So before we go any further, are there any questions about this?
I mean, I guess I do.
Or-
You said you submitted it with that tax credit project. That doesn't tie us to this property, correct? If we're given the tax credits?
Yeah, if you're given the tax credits, we had to pick a location, and so we would have to withdraw that application and submit another application.
That's a
And
problem.
that's
That's a huge
not
problem because there's no way that's going on this site, I don't think. So,
okay. So we can just withdraw that application, and when we have a site, we can submit a new application. The window is still open till August 1st.
oh, okay. I
This
thought we
year.
had to have our application in by February something.
That was the priority application window, ended February 28th, but there's a general application window that runs through August 1st. If if more than 800 megawatts submitted by February 28th, then we would be rolled over to next year. But I haven't seen any statistics. I don't think that the Department of Energy has even started looking at those applications yet.
Okay. So it doesn't mess with that priority one. It puts us in a better position still. Is that correct?
So there's two levels of priority. One is who you are as the owner. Being a nonprofit municipality, you're in priority above all for-profit companies, and that
Okay.
won't change if you change the location. The second priority is the dates, the timestamp that you submitted, and so we would be a little bit worse off by withdrawing that application and submitting a new one. But the more important priority is that you're a nonprofit.
Okay.
Yeah, we just had to pick a site, and so we picked that site.
Okay.
Guess that was the wrong site to pick, but what we
Well,
had
a lot's
to use to work
yeah.
Yeah, probably, to answer your question directly.
with. Okay. Any other questions on just overall on the system and how it's designed and any warranties or?
And Scott, go ahead and go to slide 3 also. That shows a good picture of the Beloit solar farm, and it also shows a 3 megawatt layout on an alternate site just southeast of your current solar facility.
I don't know if this is a good time. Did you hear Jeff talk about the reactive power issue due to inverter-based generation? Did you hear him talk about that?
I didn't hear that, but I'm familiar with the reactive power issues that you had. So these inverters can be designed for um, almost any level of reactive power. It's pretty common to design them for leading or lagging 92%, but they could be designed at 80%, 70%. It would just be you need an extra inverter or two so that you could put 3 megawatts AC. And if you were, for example, wanting to be at I don't know, Jeff, if you know what power factor you wanted to be at, well, we would just figure out what the MVA, how many VARs you want the inverters to provide, or we could put a capacitor bank on that facility, whichever is most economical.
Okay.
So, quick question on that. So, what I heard was you would, ineffective throttle down the inverters below 100% to stay below our max reactive power requirement. Is that in effect what?
Yes.
And then
If the
go ahead.
go ahead. Oh, so the inverters, if it provides 1 megawatt of power, and the cheapest way to build your project, the least expensive way to build your project is to design that at unity power factor. So it's 1 MVA, 1 megawatt. But if you wanted to be able to provide reactive power to correct power factor issues on your grid, um, just as an example, you could provide 1.2 MVA and 1 megawatt of real power, and that would give you, this isn't perfect math, but it'd be roughly 20% power factor correction. So it'd take you from 80% power factor to 1. You just have to do that design at the beginning, and most solar farms of this size are designed at what's called unity power factor, or 1, where you just size the inverters not to provide any power factor correction.
So it sounds like that design is permanent. It's not like our reactive requirements change as we grow, or our power portfolio changes. So we're stuck with that. We can't go back and say, you know what, now we can do Unity instead of the 1.20%
Well,
over. Is that
you,
true?
you can dial back the real power. So if you designed a 3 megawatt system at unity power factor and you wanted it to provide some correction, you could turn that into change the settings to make it a 2.5 megawatt facility, for example, that's providing power factor correction. Usually you would correct the power factor with like capacitor banks or something else instead of dialing back your inverters, but it could be done.
And I would expect, all that information would need to be provided when you're doing the design to figure out exactly what components you'd need, correct? That
Correct. During the power flow study that you would
yeah.
do on the grid, once we picked the point of interconnection, we would work with your team and engineers to figure out exactly what kind of reactive power correction you wanted to provide, and then figure out the best way to do it, either from oversizing the inverters or correcting it with a capacitor bank.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, we'll go to the next. This is the battery. Rick,
Slide 4.
correct.
We on? Okay. And so here's a third way of correcting power factor issues, and it also
Right.
doubles as a energy storage. So this is a, we call it a battery. It's not technically a battery. A battery stores electricity chemically. So lithium ion is the most common type of battery. It's like in Tesla cars and your computer, laptop. Um, those batteries can catch on fire. Well-designed ones, modern ones, almost never do, but it is a risk. They're practically limited to one cycle per day, so you can charge and discharge it once a day. If you do that, that battery will last for 25 years. But if you charge and discharge twice a day, the lifetime will be cut in half. And then they slowly degrade. So after 20 years, it'll still be working, but only be at about 65% of your original capacity. This is a technology that it's new at scale. It's called a capacitor, and so at small size, it's very old technology. Even at kind of commercial scale, it's pretty old technology. But this is in that's a 40-foot shipping container. So it's a very large energy storage. Inside that shipping container on the lower right are these individual modules. They slide in. They're just stacked floor to ceiling and fill that whole area. And each of those individual modules stores 14 kilowatt hours. So altogether, that battery stores 4.2 megawatt hours of energy. So think of that as 4 megawatts for 1 hour, or 3 megawatts for an hour and a half, 2 megawatts for 2 hours, and so on. The nice thing about the capacitors is they can discharge and charge instantaneously. They can provide power factor correction. They can cycle basically unlimited times per day very quickly. You could even charge some cells while discharging other cells inside there. No degradation over the course of 25 plus years, and the round trip efficiency, meaning how much energy you get out compared to how much you put in, is over 99%. With a lithium ion battery, you only get about 85 to 90% of the energy out that you put in. It's a little bit more expensive. It's about 60% more expensive up front, but by designing it with your solar farm, the tax credit applies to the battery also. So our philosophy is spend a little more up front for the long-term benefits there. We design these with what's called DC coupled, so they're on the solar panel side of your inverters. Most batteries that are installed in America are on the AC side or on the grid side of your inverters. By putting these on the same side as the solar panels, if you remember, we oversized the DC side by about 30%. So in the summer, on a sunny day, in the winter when there's snow on the ground but sun in the sky, you actually will be losing energy. So it's called inverter clipping. So it would not be delivering all the energy on the AC connection that you could have from the DC generation. So the battery would store that extra energy and then it would save it. And then at the end of the day, when the sun goes down, but air conditioners are still cranking, the battery would discharge that energy and and basically get that solar power that it collected from midday and discharge it at the end of the day, when you need it to cool your homes before everything's really cooled outside. and that's also when power prices start to spike. So it's graphene as the material. It's basically carbon. Anything will burn, and this will burn, but it will burn like a stack of newspapers. It won't be explosive burning, and it's almost completely biodegradable. If it came to it at the end, you could landfill the interior and stuff just biodegrades. So we feel like this is a better overall solution, and we have a lot of municipal clients that have an aversion to lithium ion and to batteries from China. So this is an alternative we've been showing to people.
Okay. Any questions there?
Have you guys been involved in any ROI analysis on this for any communities, or you just leave it up to them to figure out? As far
We've
as
done those numbers and
okay,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
yeah. So I know power costs vary by your own what you're buying, right, and who you're buying it from. But if you had
Correct.
any of that information as examples that you could share it, later, that'd be great. Send it to us.
Yep. We actually have a slide of this, but we also have the pricing. So
Yeah.
we'll so we won't provide that, I guess, tonight. But yes, we've got that information of what it saves in the battery storage. Again, there's a lot of assumptions of that.
Yeah.
Certainly, you can charge, like Rick said, you can charge and discharge several times during the day. Day ahead pricing can be really what you're doing is you're just being more active to the market and trying to take advantage of those opportunities. Again, when you have generation behind the meter, you have a lot more flexibility to do with the solar and the generation and these batteries. You're then really taking ownership of your own power supply, if you will, and trying to figure out what the best way for the city of Baldwin to take care of their energy needs.
And how new is the graphene technology? Is this brand new? I mean, just trying to figure out where it is on its price curve.
Yeah, so the patents are from 2014. They're 10 years old, but this 40-foot shipping container, they just started manufacturing those in October of last year. They have negotiated with them to get a full performance guarantee. So effectively, they give us a performance bond for the full price. If it doesn't perform as expected, then we get our money back, and they come and pick it up and take it away. But at these same units that are 14 kilowatt hours, they've been running those for years and years for that same technology, just at a smaller total scale. What's new is putting all of them into that huge shipping container and having 4 megawatt hours total.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. I zip past the one too many, I think. This is our process, solar development process and feasibility, and several jumping off points throughout the way. Is I know you talked about going out for bids. We go out for bids for all of our equipment, and you see all those prices. But Rick, if you will, kind of just if there's some explanation or what you guys need as far as the feasibility study and developing, like you said, someone asked about the ROI and all those kind of things, if it makes sense. And then if it makes sense to continue, then we go into the development and again, what about the land and the interconnection agreement and environmental issues and all those issues that you can see on the pre-financing. And then certainly, again, you can jump off anywhere there. And if it still makes sense, then, how do you finance it? We can certainly provide a PPA or you can finance yourself. There's a lot of options there, and so that's really the kind of the crux of that. This PowerPoint is to show, there's several. Just as soon as you sign it with us, doesn't mean there's a project, but it may something may go to the wayside and may need to, cancel the project. But for the most part, these are the steps that we take to get to the end.
And this is our main differentiation, is that we want to be your development partner. And so everything that we know becomes available to you, and everything's completely open book and transparent for you. And that includes being flexible. So we're not beholden to here's a PPA rate, sign here and wish us luck, or you want to own it, that's fine. We actually go in steps, try to take baby steps, de-risk the project, spend a little bit of money in this development stage. For example, once we've identified suitable land, cleared the title for that land, easements, done the power flow study for the connection at that point, looked for any environmental or state reasons, anybody that says you can't do that. That spend is on the order of $20,000. If you want to terminate there, you can. You just reimburse us our hard costs, no profit. If you still want to go forward, then the right column, step 5, we start doing engineering studies. So now we know we can build the project, but how much is it going to cost to build it? So we'll look at the soil, the slopes, the water flow on the site, do preliminary design so that we can get firm pricing for the equipment. And we at the feasibility stage, you have ROI calculations, but it's estimates based on past projects. And at this point now, you get that ROI analysis done again with actual numbers. So just look at everything and make sure you still want to go forward or stop and reimburse our costs. Really, you don't have to decide on the financing until that stage. You can either own it or have us own it and buy the power through a PPA. But honestly, most people have picked out before then which way they want to do financing. And then, regardless of who the owner is, we'll stay on as the EPC, the construction manager, and we can do the O&M also. But we work with other cities, and they want us to just monitor and the site and do all of the tax credit verification sort of things, which are foreign to them, and use and then their staff wants to actually be the boots on the ground, get trained in how to do this work, and that's fine with us also. We're really open to working with you on whatever makes the most sense for both sides.
And today we're currently doing 18 megawatts with Kansas Power Pool. Is it 7 sites, I believe, Rick? And so we're going
7
through the
sites.
process of, yeah, we've gone through those sites, those steps, and help with the financing, help with the LMI projects, LMI financing, or the ITCs. And so we're very familiar with the entire process. Questions?
I think we're good.
And then really, I think really we can certainly talk about, but I think maybe just the investment tax credits, and maybe you're aware of how that all works. Again, I mentioned them briefly, but this is the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022, and 30% for the renewable. So solar gets 30%, and the batteries would get 30%. Domestic content, another 10%. Again, we meet that qualification in the projects we're doing, and we can meet in 2025, if we build or begin the process with you, we can meet that 45% domestic steel and iron. So we get another 10%. So 40% of the project is then investment tax credits. You guys can take direct payment today, and then as I mentioned here, the low to moderate, that's what you signed up for. You did the resolution before the end of February deadline, where you were the preferred deadline. This is another 20%. So you can see in this example, being 1 megawatt, again, $2 million for what it's worth. Your investment tax credits are $1.2 million. So your net project cost is $800,000. And I think the domestic content, where I talked earlier there, these are the qualifications. Again, we know the rules and regulations. We've met this obligation to get the 10%. There's a 10% energy community, and I think, Rick, you're showing that across the street there, across the highway on the west of Baldwin, is an energy community, but of course Baldwin City is not part of that. Correct?
That's correct. Here, it's too far outside of your area. And just a comment on that domestic content. So our last project, we're at 78% domestic content. And by the time your guys' project were to start ordering end of this year, we'll be close to 90% domestic content. Beloit just 2023 years ago, we were less than 20% domestic content. And so this is just how much U.S. manufacturing has come back.
And this is our last slide here. Any questions of us?
Typically, how long from project award to turn up are you guys seeing on something this size?
From if we pull the
Oh,
trigger.
Yeah, so we award you a contract, and how long before we're seeing power?
It'd be about 12 months, about May of next year.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
So, given the conversation, given what Jeff brought up about the pushback AC factor, if we did a 3 megawatt field, would that require, maybe by recommendation, I don't know what proportion you go with, but one of those 40-foot capacitors? Two? How many?
You're not required to have a super capacitor.
No.
You could handle that power factor issue just through inverters.
Right. But if we wanted to
we're
go
specking out. I'm
We-
sorry.
up until this
we're
point,
specking
we've
out two
kind of been told that we have.
containers.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I'm sorry. We're specking out two containers for 4.2 megawatts, half loaded, if you will, and then you have the containers there. If you want to add additional batteries or capacitors, you can certainly just kind of clip them in for a much lower price. But our thought was the project, again, trying to get another 20%, the 60% ITCs. We were kind of looking at adding the two containers at this time, but based on the project.
But okay, so let's do some extremes. So let's say we wanted to go to 5 megawatts solar, and the capacitors would solve that offloading issue. There'll obviously be a ceiling at some point because you can't push it all back. You got to use some of it. So, but basically, that capacitor technology, some old, some new, does alleviate the amount of megawatts that we can push back onto the grid.
With the battery or the
Yeah.
capacitor or the inverter design?
The capacitor is the battery, as I understand it.
That's right. And so, yeah, in that case, you would have about 5 of those shipping containers. That would be 20 megawatt hours of energy storage. So you could inject to the grid 2.5 megawatts, put the other 2.5 into your battery, and you'd be discharging into midnight or so. So you're thinking about it the right way.
Thanks.
And your upper size limit would be 5 megawatts. You can't go, if you go larger than 5 megawatts, you can't get the LMI bonus, and interconnection costs aren't tax credit eligible. So
Right.
you wouldn't want to go any larger than 5 with that design.
Okay.
Isn't the normal, I guess, use case for those batteries is to charge them up at night when you got really cheap power, and not necessarily during the day because you're overproducing.
Correct. You would charge at night, then discharge perhaps in the morning when you're kind of seeing two peaks, at least pricing peaks, and then you could charge with the solar, right? You're getting quote unquote free power charged into the battery, and then that'd be discharged at night.
I think it's going to come down to looking at the reactive power problem, solving that versus, do you use these to solve that? Because I'm not sure the ROI, it would be different if you're charging up with, during the day.
Just
well,
come from a
you're
clear
being charged. You're
standpoint
charging it with the solar, the excess solar. The design
right,
that we
as
have
opposed to
is
using
3.9.
it, right?
Well,
You would
both.
Oh, so it's on the solar panel side.
You would leave it charged in the battery overnight and purchase off the grid, off the open market for your operating for the nighttime for the community, and then save your stored energy for the morning and afternoon when you get peaked. But
there's a lot of different ways to do it. Really based on price, obviously, right? And again, like you guys are thinking now you're starting to manage your power supply, right?
Right.
You're taking the cheap power at overnight, typically charging it perhaps during the morning before the solar gets up. And then the solar, then again, the design that we have is 3.9 DC, 3 megawatts of AC. So that 900 DC could go right into the battery. And that's what I would quote unquote call free power that's going into the battery. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Because whatever you use from your own production, you can sell your contracts to the open market. And that's kind of where I'm trying to head.
You may be long and you would just drop them into the market. Correct.
Right.
Again, just being active with that. And then adding additional diesel generation, you would again, at some price point, you wouldn't buy from the market, you would generate from your diesel, and you'd have power from the solar coming as well. So there's a lot of ways to skin the cat, I guess.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it.
Yep. Very helpful.
Thank you very much for your time.
Yep. Thank you. Apologies for the technical issues.
Oh no, it worked out.
No worries.
Sorry about that.
All right, council.
Thank
Any
you.
other discussion, questions for any staff at this time?
No, I mean it's a little uncomfortable. It's all new. Technology's new, but I mean I think it's the direction we should head. I think the more behind the meter production that we can give to the community, the more affordable this place gets as the years go on.
Kind of timeline are we thinking to make decisions on?
Well,
Location, size.
probably need to start getting some
Vendor.
pricing together. I mean, he gave us the amount of acres we need, so now that gives us a better direction on where we need to go on that. I mean, if we want to do 3 megawatts, we need at least 15 acres.
I think we remember we showed at the, for just the capacity issue, probably needs to be online in 27, right? Because URDA will be.
I think by the end of this year, we need to have a
Right.
decision done,
Contract awarded.
contract done, and we're just waiting for construction.
Did he say how much those capacitors equal in capacity? We're all coming back around to the terminology. It all circles back. But you'd think you get, at least 90 to 100% out of the energy store.
Yeah.
That can get pushed right.
I said it's 100.
100%.
Okay, good.
In fact, they were guaranteed.
Well, it can't be 100.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, you lose a little bit of it in the inversion process. Well, okay.
it's already inverted
Okay.
before it goes in. I think the inversion has occurred as it's stored.
That's stored as DC.
It's stored as DC, and then you
But
push
you
it
get
through your
DC out, 100% of DC out. Now that doesn't equate to 100% AC.
That's what I'm saying. So it can't
It's
be
just
100%.
like our solar. It's 100% DC.
100% DC,
It
but
looks like a solar panel.
you wouldn't. But since the grid's AC, you wouldn't be able to get 100% out of the.
It's like you can't
Right.
get 100% out of your solar panel.
Right.
Yeah, same conversion factor.
Right.
Yeah.
I think we should ask Jeff and what he
Always.
has to say.
Correctly, you were asking what the credit capacity to batteries are?
Yeah.
Okay, so I asked that very same question today at our EMP meeting at KMEA. The best that they know now is, so a 4 megawatt hour battery pack, like we're talking about, is accredited for 1 megawatt. And then it's derated by the capacity factor. So if we want to know what accredited capacity a 4 megawatt hour battery is, it's going to be anywhere from 40 to 80% of 1 megawatt. So we're talking 400 kW to 800 kW is what the accredited capacity of a 4 megawatt hour battery is.
Okay, but that's because of the math, right? Because you got to. It's about 1
Because it's only available.
Right. Right.
However you discharge it,
Right.
it's 1 megawatt, 24 hours,
Right.
or 4 megawatts for any length.
It has to be a percentage of the day that it is available.
Right.
Right. Okay.
So it's it's so new that SPP doesn't have a complete formula right now for batteries as far as accreditation, but they have seen anywhere from 40 to 80%
Of 1 megawatt.
1 megawatt.
Okay, that's very clear.
I thought you were talking energy.
No, I was talking. Yeah.
Capacitor capacity.
Yeah.
I got you now.
Sometimes it doesn't come out
I'm with
right.
you now.
Sometimes it goes, especially
Yeah,
when you don't know what you're
and,
talking
You
about.
know, I don't think we should be looking at it for capacity. All it sounds like we'll get some
Small amount,
small
yeah.
amount,
Mhm.
but it's really the cost savings on the energy.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
So I also did a little figuring as well as on what I've known was the price for this, and based on what I got from you guys for a annual cost to bond that amount of money, we're looking at about $69 per megawatt hour that would have to be saved before you would break even on just construction cost. That doesn't include any O&M in the future. What I didn't do is take off any capacity credit. So there'd be a small amount of capacity that you could dial back from that to give that battery some more value. But when you're just talking the economics of that 4 megawatt hour battery, you would have to save $69 for every megawatt. So if you bought it at 0, you'd have to sell it for 69 to break even on just the construction costs.
But that's not over a term. That's not over 20.
That's over the term of the bond.
Okay.
I went with what you guys told me that per million a bond is. So
Right.
I assume that's a 20-year term.
Right.
So
Now it's just for the battery.
just for the cost of the battery, no O&M was involved in that. And I don't know how much O&M is involved in a battery. There's
Was that at
probably some.
40% ITC, 60%? What
Did you put any of the tax credits on that?
or is that
Did you
just
I figured that at 40%.
Okay.
Because from my reading, I can't find where battery storage is eligible for the lower income.
okay?
In fact, I got it on my computer where it says it isn't. So there's a few questions I'd like to talk to Priority Power about some of their stuff and going forward with this. But yes, I did give it a 40% tax credit.
I mean, I think this thing needs to stand on its own, whatever it is, at the 40%. I mean, the extra 20 is, I don't even know when they're going to make that award. If they make it before we need to make our decision. So hopefully whatever we decide works at 40% tax credits, not 60. And then if we do get to 60, it's
Hey, can we?
it's a bonus.
Yeah.
You know, it just lowers the cost, basically goes into our lower rates for energy is what that does.
That's right.
I can spend a little more time and give you a breakout of how I came to that price, and I can include in the capacity value of it.
I think we'll need a
Credit
lot more
capacity.
We're
time.
going to be spending
Yeah,
a lot
you
more.
Not just going to be a little bit more time, Jeff.
So yeah, I mean, we all need to understand that so we know what makes sense. Yeah, we'll be using a lot of your time, Jeff.
Any other questions or comments? All right. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Anything else, council? If not, we will adjourn the work session. Thank you all.